Hello and welcome to Plan Your Professional Development. I'm Andy King.
And I'm Khadija Carr.
We're coming to you from AmeriCorps Vista headquarters in Washington, D.C. We're assisted by Andy Clark and Scott Weinroth from Education Northwest. You'll see them in the chat in the Q&A to assist you during the session.
Thank you to all of you who have been posting to the chat question about the goal you hope to accomplish during your year of service. It's great to see such positive and professional goals, and also recognize that you're commenting on ways you want to grow as well as fulfill the duties of your VAD. You may have joined Vista to become involved in anti-poverty causes or to learn about nonprofit management. Perhaps you saw an opportunity to become a better public speaker or to help a specific community that is meaningful to you.
This session shows you how to make the most of your year of service so that while you're building capacity in the community, you are also building your own capacity. The Vista program offers a range of resources to support your professional development, so we want to let you know what's available. In this session, we'll help you plan for your professional development, and we'll point you to some resources to help make that happen. During your pre-service orientation, you learned some of the basics of understanding your VAD, your Vista assignment. And you looked at identifying skills that you'll need to accomplish that. And you also started looking at navigating the Vista campus. So now comes the fun part. It's time to take your initial thoughts and turn them into a plan of action. Here's our agenda for today. We'll start by looking at the individual development plan as a tool for your ongoing learning. Then we'll explore 4 areas relevant to Vista service. We'll show you some other resources, and then we'll see what questions you have. Throughout today's presentation, we'll have opportunities for you to participate, and if this works for everyone, I'll ask Khadija to start us off.
All right, so let's dive in and get a sense of who is on the session today. This webinar includes Vistas from several different PSOs. Let's take a moment to see where everyone is serving and give you a sense of others with whom you can connect. If you've seen this before, you know what to do. For those of you who have not seen this before, in the upper left corner of the screen is an icon that looks like a pencil. Click on that to see the annotation tools on the left side of your screen. Click the arrow tool and then click on the map to point to where you are serving as a Vista. You might want to make the slide full screen. You can do this by clicking on the double arrows in the top right area of the screen so that you can move more easily and see others and where they're located.
All right, well, we've got lots of folks putting their arrows on the map, dozens and dozens. I love the colors. It's so nice.
Yeah.
This time around, we've got a lot of folks serving in the central part of the country. Sometimes we've got different distributions based on where people came from when they went to their pre-service orientation. Just one up in New England. We have someone in Puerto Rico, Hawaii.
Yeah.
Looks like a couple in Alaska. So really nice distribution. And of course, if you're one of those who sees yourself without a lot of arrows around you, fear not. We've got another way for you to find other Vistas.
Yeah. Whether you are geographically close to other Vistas or not, know that you are not alone. We have Vistas serving in all 50 states and U.S. territories who are a resource for you. And later in the session, we'll show you how you can find other Vistas by using the Vista map and other features of the Vista campus. And by the way, if you switch your slide view to full screen, you may want to switch back so you can participate in other activities that will be coming up.
All right, that was fun, Khadija. Thanks. So this webinar is focused on the professional development of Vista members. All of you recently completed your pre-service orientation, which introduced you to the Vista program, to concepts of poverty and theories of change, as well as touching on some skills that you may need during your Vista service. You've also been engaged in learning the specifics of your Vista role and the site where you're serving through what we call on-site orientation and training. As these formal trainings wind down, you'll need to think about what comes next. Even when you've finished PSO and your on-site training, your learning as a Vista is not over. So first, let's revisit one of your most important tools, Your responsibilities as a Vista are outlined in what we call the Vista Assignment Description, or the VAD. During your PSO, you reviewed your VAD, and you began to think about what it'll take for you to accomplish it. Now, you and your supervisor will likely come up with some additional activities that weren't originally in your VAD, and those additional activities will be geared to support your achievement of the overall objectives, and to do that by capitalizing on your unique strengths. So eventually your VAD may be refined a little bit from where it started out.
We want to hear from you again. Using the chat function, share what responsibilities are in your VAD now. During PSO, you had an opportunity to begin identifying the knowledge and skills you'll need to be effective in your Vista role. Whether your VAD includes fundraising, volunteer recruitment, community engagement, or event management, it's likely there are things in there that you haven't really done before. So you'll need to learn how to do these things. And to learn them, you'll have to plan. We'll take a moment to review some of the responses.
All right, so it looks like folks are coming in. I see fundraising and grant writing, volunteer training, a number of things related to volunteering, recruitment, volunteer management, event coordination.
Yep. Grant writing, mapping out resources, web development, capacity building, good one, good one.
Yeah, I've seen capacity building a few times, and that could be a huge, huge topic. And some very specific things here, like reducing veteran suicides, acute early. Program development. Yeah, so a lot of these, if you think about it, are common skills or common tasks that people in the nonprofit sector perform. So these are great kinds of skills that, yeah, you're going to develop them for your Vista service, but they'll probably have a lot of applicability even when you go on to do other things.
Yep. Once you've identified areas where you might focus your professional growth, it's time to come up with a plan. Start by meeting with your supervisor to review your VAD and develop measurable milestones and deliverables. Take notes and write down questions and any clarifications needed so that you understand your assignment. Keep your VAD handy so you can refer back to it periodically to track your progress. As you get into your service, you and your supervisor may come up with additional activities to capitalize on your unique strengths. So your VAD may be refined somewhat from the original version, like Andy was saying. Your supervisor is the person to answer questions about your VAD, its time frame, and other aspects of your assignment. Take ownership of your VAD and take the time to reflect on what is being asked of you. Focus on trying to discover for yourself how your own personal goals and ideas are in alignment with your VAD. The more passionate and committed you are to your service activities, the easier it will be for you to excel in them.
So during your pre-service orientation, you looked closely at your VAD and began identifying the knowledge and skills that you'll need to accomplish it. An individual development plan is a great tool for capturing this information and identifying some specific learning activities that you can undertake. If you started developing a plan during your PSO and you have it handy, you might want to take a look at it now. If you don't have one, you can download a copy from the Vista campus, and the link will be posted there in the chat. Think of your individual development plan as the bridge between your VAD and actually accomplishing your goals. You may know where you want to end up, but if you aren't sure how to get there, you're going to need a plan. The IDP, or the Individual Development Plan, allows you to plot your path with some concrete action steps for building your skills. Now that you're thinking about some of the areas where you'd like to build your skills, let's take a look at some ways you can go about your professional development. We're going to walk through 4 main areas of learning that seem useful for most Vistas. And for each, we'll show you resources on the Vista campus and beyond to guide your learning in this area. And we'll look at ways to connect you, or that you can connect with other Vistas around the subject.
Okay, before we get into that, I have to share the legal fine print. We'll mention some examples of websites and resources that may be helpful, but just keep in mind that because we mention them, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're endorsed by the Vista program or the Corporation for National and Community Service. You'll want to figure out which resources are right for you.
All right, thanks for that disclaimer. So we're going to start out with what we're calling life hacks for Vistas. You've been a Vista for just a few weeks, but you need to know the ins and outs of Vista service. You learned a lot of it before you started, but there's plenty more to know. So we're going to use another feature of WebEx. It's the raise hand feature. And to find that, you have to be looking at the participant panel. So if you don't see participant panel, click on the little triangle next to the word participants in the upper right corner of the screen. And right at the bottom of that panel, you'll see a little hand. That's the raise hand feature. All right, so hopefully you've seen that now. So if you know the answer to this question, I want you to click raise hand. So here's your question. How many sick days and how many personal days off do you get as a Vista member? Again, remember, click raise hand if you know the answer, and we'll see how many of you said you know it. All right, 20, 24, it's going up, 26, 20, 30 of you know the answer. All right, I hope if you know the answer, please raise your hand. All right, well, I'm going to just cut it off there. We've got about almost 40 of you, almost half of you say that you know the answer to that question. All right, so it looks like a lot of you do know it, and maybe some of you don't know where you would, don't know that answer. And if you don't, you're going to want to look at the Vista Member Handbook. So that's kind of the first life hack that I want to share with you. The Vista Member Handbook is where you'll find all of the policies and all of the things like how many sick days do you get. So if you don't know that kind of stuff, the handbook is where you're going to want to go. So you can put your hand down now.
One of the first steps as you're getting settled is to read the Vista Member Handbook. We can't stress it enough. It details the policies of the Vista program and outlines the process for requesting assistance. It has answers to questions like, how many personal days do you get? The handbook is located on the Vista campus in the section called Life as a Vista.
All right, next, get to know the organization where you're serving. Dive into some documents that lay the foundation for your organization, including their strategic plan, their mission statement, and vision. If there have been Vistas at your site before, review their accomplishments by looking at things like past quarterly reports, which your supervisor can probably share with you. You may also want to meet with people in various departments to look at what they're doing and see how you might work together. These contacts are also likely to have connections in the community that could be really helpful. All right, well, since we're on a webinar, let's take advantage of one of the other features that's available to us, and that is the polling feature. So we're going to use the poll so we can hear from you again. On the right side of your screen, you will see a poll that asks about the frequency with which you meet with your supervisor. So we're talking here about a formal meeting, meaning that both of you have actually scheduled time and that you're having a conversation to discuss various things about work. We're not talking about just answering a question in passing or having a 5-minute check-in. So take a moment to answer the question, how frequently do you formally meet with your supervisor? Is it multiple times a week, once a week, about every 2 weeks, or once a month? Or last option, I haven't yet set up a formal meeting with my supervisor. Once you select your answer, be sure to click the Submit button so that your answer will be tabulated. And it'll take a few seconds for that to come together. So while we're waiting on that, I just want to say that we know that schedules can get busy with meetings and site visits, activities, and all the rest that you'll be doing as a Vista. And it can be a challenge to sit down and have an actual meeting. However, one of the biggest elements of Vista member success, both personally and professionally, is good supervision and good member-supervisor relationship. In fact, we did a study a couple years ago, and we had formal evaluators, and they looked at it, and that was the #1 predictor of Vista member success, was a good supervisor relationship. All right, so let's look at the poll results. It looks like the biggest number, out of those of you who answered, the biggest number of you said that you're meeting once a week or more. Some of you are, a good number of you are meeting more than once a week, which is great. Even once every 2 weeks could be good, as long as you can get things handled in a timely way. So good to know. I see a few of you didn't have a chance to answer that. If you were, and I forgot to say this, if you were joined on a mobile device, the poll doesn't work. So sorry, but next time you may want to join us using a computer. All right, what else do I want to say about meeting with your supervisor? It's important that you meet with your supervisor so that you can get the support that you need as you continue to grow and learn. And we also want you to do your part to ensure that your supervisor and the organization you're serving know about what it is you're doing and what challenges you're facing and what accomplishments you are making. All right. So let's talk a little bit about support when maybe situations get challenging. Since we're talking about supervisor, let's talk about what to do if maybe your supervisor isn't providing the kind of support that you would like. There may be times when a situation with a supervisor is too challenging for you to manage on your own. For example, if you feel your supervisor is treating you unfairly or even maybe is harassing you. On the other hand, if your supervisor is unavailable and you don't know when you'll see him or her again, or another extreme, if you have so many supervisors that you can't get a decision made on your project. So if you have a challenge like that that's preventing you from having a successful experience in your Vista service, there are some resources you can turn to. If your Vista project has a Vista leader, you can approach your leader for general advice, problem solving, and your leader can perhaps facilitate a difficult conversation with your supervisor. Another great resource, and really the primary one here, is your CNCS state office. They can assist with the issues that you might have relating to how your Vista project is being managed, its ability to attain its goal, or any issue that cannot be resolved with or by your supervisor. The state office can also intervene if you're not receiving supervision, if the things that you're being asked to do are very different from what's in your VAD, or if your tasks aren't capacity building, for instance, if you're replacing a staff member, or if you encounter any type of harassment or discrimination. So that would be your CNCF state office. And then finally, you can turn to each other. You can turn to other Vista members, whether they're at your project or across the country, to get advice and support. And we'll talk more about that a little bit later on. We have a webinar that digs deep into supervisor issues and how to manage them. It's called Managing Up, Navigating the Vista Supervisor Relationship, and an on-demand version of it is available on the webinars page on the Vista campus. All right, so I've just added 2 more life hacks to our list here: regular meetings with your supervisor and getting additional support when you need it.
As we saw a little earlier, your VAD likely has a lot of tasks outlined for you. So you'll be working on a number of different things over the year that you're serving as a Vista. Let's talk a little bit about how you can keep track of what it is that you're doing and the progress you're making so you can report on it later. To help make this a little bit easier for you, the Vista program has created a mobile reporting tool that you can use in your office and out in the community.
When you're busy working in the community, it can be easy to forget to track all the great work you're doing. You won't know how much progress you're making unless you track your work and keep good records. So the Vista Impact app, or a reporting tool, allows you to track your activities using a smartphone, tablet, or computer. Keeping a log of your activities and successes will not only help you and your supervisor when your Vista reports are due, but it'll also help you to build a clear record of achievement for reference after you finish your service term, like when you're doing a resume or your portfolio. So the Vista Impact tool is available exclusively through the Vista campus. You won't find it in the App Store or the Google Play Store. From the Vista campus, it's easy to add the home screen, to add this tool to the home screen of your phone or tablet. And you can see that kind of illustrated there on the slide. We've got an on-demand webinar. It's really short that shows you how to use the tool. And you'll find that webinar on the Vista campus under Life as a Vista, or by following the link that is in the handout that we gave you.
Now that you've been on your project for at least a couple of weeks, has anything popped up that makes you feel a little bit nervous about your VAD? Maybe you're worried about being asked to do something that's beyond your current skill set, or maybe the tasks being outlined are a little too big. Is there anything that we could provide that would alleviate some of this nervousness? Also, on the flip side of that, we also want to know what you're really excited about in your VAD. Is there something specific that you're working on or gearing up to work on that you're particularly passionate about? We always love hearing about the wonderful work that you're doing, so please let us know. We'll give you a few moments to share your ideas.
And just as a reminder, when we opened the poll, that closed the chat, so you can click the little triangle next to polling, and the poll will close, and then you can reopen the chat by clicking the triangle next to the word chat.
Let's see. So I see folks are excited to build their public speaking skills. Let's see.
Yeah, a little bit of nervousness here. What if there's not a need for volunteers, or what if the things in my VAD are not really relevant right now?
Excited to network in the area. Seeing this again, short on volunteers.
Yeah, technological limitations. What can a nonprofit afford to do software-wise, and how can we make the most of what we've got? Yeah, sometimes it can feel like it's hard to get started. Especially in the early weeks, you're maybe being underutilized. That's a common thing that we see, but often a few weeks later, people have just the opposite thing to report, where they've got plenty to do. Time management, that's a big issue. Event planning.
I see someone's presenting on Friday. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, that's exciting. Exciting, maybe nervous, but exciting, I think.
Yeah, good stuff.
Kind of a little full disclosure here, really these questions are geared to be, in a way, the flip side of each other, because sometimes something that you really are excited about can also make you nervous because you care a lot about it and you want to do a good job. So I think they're sort of tied together there.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. A number of you mentioning time management. How am I going to get all this done? I've only got a year and the clock is already ticking. Yeah, it's good to keep that in mind. Public speaking, I think everybody is nervous about public speaking at some point. And I find that if I don't get nervous about a presentation or something I'm going to do, it's kind of a warning sign because it means I'm not paying enough attention to it.
Yeah. I see one here, nervous about stepping on other people's toes.
So the whole community entry and wanting to do the right thing and wanting to know, that's a big one. We're going to talk a little bit about that soon. All right, well, many of you have identified specific skills or knowledge areas where you realize that you may need to know more in order to be effective in carrying out your VAD. It's likely that your VAD includes things that you've never done before, which is okay. That'll give you the opportunity to learn something new. So that's a perfect segue to the next three topics, which relate to the kinds of things that many Vista members are responsible for. So we've already looked at some life hacks to make your service easier. Now let's move on to look at three other areas that relate to many Vista assignments. And we're going to start with community outreach. Now, this topic can encompass a lot. including general communications, social media, as well as direct face-to-face outreach. We'll show you some campus resources, some resources that you can access online beyond the campus, as well as some peer resources that have been created or shared by other Vista members. So there are several Vista campus resources that dig into capacity building, which is essential to community development work. And one that helps challenge your own assumptions, which is called Not Always What You Think.
There's an interactive tutorial on community building called the 5 C's that looks at community, connections, control, cash, and collective action. The last resource listed here, Strengthening Your Organization, Your Community, and Your Projects, shows you how to build your program sustainability by deepening your ties to the surrounding community. Use the faceted search feature on the Vista campus to narrow down the results to get to the resources and tutorials that best meet your needs. Your supervisor may also have recommendations for additional training you can do related to your VAD. Also on the Vista campus are a number of on-demand webinars related to the outreach that you can watch at your own convenience. Here are just a few. The first is writing powerful impact statements. This is about engaging others in your project. You need to tell a compelling story of what your project is doing. Or planning a social media campaign for your project. This webinar guides you in developing a social media plan through setting realistic goals, examining components of a social media plan, and then implementing them. Or another example, building a professional network for service and career. As part of your personal and professional development, you will need to develop partnerships, interact with many people, and of course, engage the community. Use this webinar to leverage networks for professional success and social impact during and after your service. Typically, we offer webinars every month, so there are plenty of opportunities for you to learn and connect. To access live and on-demand webinars on the Vista campus, simply go to the Connect and Learn tab and then click on Webinars. We'll also be sending out an email notice so that you are aware of what's coming up. Be sure to register for the webinar in advance and add it to your calendar so that you don't end up with scheduling conflicts.
Good point. Everybody talked about time management, so using a calendar is a great part of time management. So in addition to the resources Khadijah just mentioned that were created by the Vista program, there's information and advice from other Vista members that you can also find on the Vista campus. So first is the discussion forums. For example, there's a thread called Getting Information to Program Clients in the Vista forum that's called You and the Work. So this thread looks at ways of reaching out to clients and potential clients of a program. The best way to stay connected through the forums is to subscribe to each forum that interests you. Another way to get automatically subscribed is to reply to a post that you've seen on the campus. We'll show you how to do both of these in just a little bit. There's another section of the campus that contains materials that were created by Vista leaders, part of what's called the Action Learning Challenge. And that section is called the Team Products page. In the area of community outreach, there is a guide there that's called Gaining Community Buy-in for Your Vista Project. And this resource highlights 9 best practices for community participation that these leaders came up with.
Looking beyond the Vista campus for a second, here is a fantastic resource developed by the University of Kansas. The Community Toolbox is a free online resource for those working to build healthier communities and bring about social change. It offers thousands of pages of tips and tools for taking action in communities. Whether it's community assessment, planning, evaluation, or advocacy, the Community Toolbox has something to offer among its 300 educational modules and other free tools. It's currently available in English, Spanish, and Arabic. It includes extensive readings on community building, toolkits, a troubleshooting guide, and a database of best practices. They even offer Ask an Advisor, where you can submit a question to their panel of experts or browse answers to other people's questions.
Now here's some other tools outside of Vista that might interest you. To connect to others working in the community, you might look for a chapter of a young nonprofit professionals network in your area. YNPN can be a great place to network, and some of the local chapters offer learning opportunities and social events as well. The Building Movement Project has put together a handbook on community engagement. They call it the NICE Guide, that is, Nonprofits Integrating Community Engagement. In terms of online courses, here's just a sampling of a few resources that are out there, just examples of what's available. Allison has a free course on encouraging diverse community involvement. Coursera offers one on integrated marketing communications that looks at how to communicate effectively with various audiences, so that could help you in your outreach efforts.
All right, so now let's move from community outreach to volunteer mobilization. Let's see what kinds of resources might advance your service in that area. Whether it's a big part of your VAD or an occasional need for special events, you may have a need to engage volunteers in what you're doing. Fortunately, there's a lot available on this subject. The Vista campus has an entire section on volunteer management with a range of resources. Vista also offers a 10-week online course in volunteer mobilization that you can earn college credit recommendation from the American Council on Education. And there are related resources in other areas of the campus, so a quick search of this campus will turn up more results. For example, there is a resource on engaging volunteers in fundraising events.
There are a number of on-demand webinars related to volunteer mobilization that you can watch at your convenience. Here are just a few. High-impact volunteer recruitment. You want to recruit the best volunteers for your project, right? So this webinar teaches you how you can be creative and effective in recruiting those volunteers. We have one called Building Sustainability into a Volunteer Program, and that's all about learning how to anticipate volunteer expectations and then building relationships that actually enhance your volunteer engagement. The third one listed here is creating group volunteer opportunities that engage and inspire. Now, I know a lot of you will be involved in things like National Days of Service or, getting large numbers of volunteers together on a particular day. This resource is all about how to do that, how to plan a group volunteer project to engage community volunteers. And it could be a way to recruit them in to become ongoing volunteers. Again, you can access live and on-demand webinars in the webinars page of the Vista campus under Connect and Learn. Again, remember to register in advance and add the webinar to your calendar.
In addition to the resources that Andy just mentioned, there is also information and advice from other Vista members available through the Vista campus. First, the discussion forums on the campus have lots of posts about volunteers. For example, there's a thread called Volunteer Record Keeping. This discusses the pros and the cons of various databases and software packages to manage volunteer data. Another thread looks at ways of getting volunteers that will stick around. There are, additionally, others, so I really encourage you to use the new search feature in the forums to see what your colleagues have shared. Also be sure to weigh in and add your own voice. The Action Learning Team Products page has a guide to National Days of Service project ideas that provides instructions, planning timelines, and templates for planning and implementing successful community volunteer projects for National Days of Service.
Yeah, and I'll just mention that resource, National Days of Service project, done by Vista leaders. The same leaders who created that project also did the webinar for us, so they work together really well, those two resources. All right, so looking outside the Vista program, you're really lucky that there are many, many places to find information on volunteer management. First place you may want to look is for a local volunteer managers group in your area, a professional network of other people who are engaged in volunteer management may be a great way for you to connect with the profession. There's a national group called ALIVE, which is the Association of Leaders in Volunteer Engagement. And at the local level, there are local associations or volunteer managers groups, sometimes called DOVIAs, which stands for Directors of Volunteers and Agencies. Typically, these local groups offer regular meetings, trainings, and networking opportunities. If there's not a group in your area, or if you simply prefer online interaction, there are also a wealth of online communities and discussion sites for volunteer managers. And again, we've got links to some of that in the handout that you can download.
And of course, you'll find a wealth of learning resources online as well. For example, Energize, Inc. has the most comprehensive collection of resources on volunteer management. There are professional development resources, tools related to career advancement, links to online communities, and local volunteer manager groups. Volunteer Match offers more than just a powerful volunteer recruitment site. They also offer free webinars on a range of volunteer management topics, books and resources, and a volunteer management blog. Points of Light offers an annual conference on volunteering and service. Recognition programs like the Daily Point of Light Award and the President's Volunteer Service Award and the volunteer recruitment site, All for Good. The Council for Certification in Volunteer Administration offers a professional credential for those in the field of volunteer administration, along with a textbook and a pathway for achieving it. They publish the Professional Ethics in Volunteer Management that can serve as a guide for all those working with volunteers. Everyone Ready is an online volunteer management skill-building program featuring some of the best-known names in volunteer management from around the world. It's not free, but many larger organizations have subscriptions, so you might find a partner with access to this resource.
All right, and this brings us to the fourth area that we want to explore that could relate to your Vista assignment, and that is resource development. By nature, Vistas are capacity builders, and of course, one of the most common ways that they build capacity is to generate financial resources for the organization or the community. Plus, knowing how to raise money is a great skill to have if you plan to work in the nonprofit sector after you finish. The Vista campus has an entire section on resource development with resources relating to grant writing, fundraising, and special events. The tutorial on researching grants is a great introduction to finding funding opportunities. Vista also offers a 10-week online course in resource development. Again, if you take this course and pass, you can earn 3 college credit recommendations.
The Vista campus also offers on-demand webinars related to resource development that you can watch at your convenience. There's creating an online fundraising strategy, writing winning proposals, advice from an experienced grant reviewer, and, coming in July, a webinar on how to find funding opportunities. Again, you can access live and on-demand webinars on the webinars page of the Vista campus under Connect and Learn. Remember, register in advance and add it to the webinar calendar. So your fellow Vista members have shared a ton of information and advice through the campus forums available through the Vista campus. There's a thread called Fundraising Ideas where Vistas are sharing just that, ideas for a fundraising event. Others look at donor tracking software, including Salesforce, and a compilation of grant-related resources. These are just a few examples, so use the new forum search feature to see what else is there.
There are plenty of places beyond the campus to find information on resource development. Those of you who see yourself in the resource development field should check out the Association for Fundraising Professionals website and explore their professional development section. It includes everything from conferences and leadership training to executive institutes and certification. The American Grant Writers Association publishes the professional standards and code of ethics for grant writers. They also offer a free newsletter and some fee-based online courses and workshops. There are also many local networks for grant writers, so see if there's one in your area. It could be a good way to meet others who are working in your field. Of course, you'll find a wealth of learning resources online as well. The Foundation Center and Grantsmanship Center offer a trove of information about private foundations, corporate giving programs, government grants, and other funding sources. They have online learning resources, trainings, and databases of funders. Some of the resources are by paid subscription, but there's plenty available for free. GrantSpace is a service of the Foundation Center that offers free and paid training as well as online learning resources.
All right, so now it's your turn. Let's hear some of the professional development resources that you would recommend to your fellow Vistas. Again, please use the chat panel to post your suggestions. Let's see here. While you all are jotting that down, I'll quickly mention a few things. Maybe some of you have found a free course or an online resource that was specifically helpful to you that you think would lend itself to one of your fellow Vistas. Maybe there's an affinity group or professional organization that you think really resonates especially well with your Vista service. Also, what was that one TED Talk you saw, that you thought everyone should for sure watch this? Those are kinds of the things that would be really awesome to share with your fellow Vistas.
Yeah, so let's see. Lisa talked about joining a local Toastmasters club to improve public speaking. That is a great resource. I highly recommend it. Many of you mentioned early on. The public speaking is something you're nervous about. Toastmasters will help you get over it. It's a really supportive environment and a very professional one. It's a great way to develop your skills. You get opportunities to practice, and you get really helpful individual feedback. Some other resources here, someone else mentioned Coursera. There's a ton of stuff there available for free. Here's one I'm not familiar with. It's called, where did it go? The National Digital Inclusion Alliance. So I'm guessing that there's some great technological resources there for making information and things available more widely. Meetup. Using Meetup is a great way to find others in your geographic area or others with similar interests. If you're not using Meetup, you might consider it. I signed up a few years ago, and I'm learning all about Washington, D.C., all these things. I've lived here a long time, all these things I never knew that are going on all around me. So it's a very cool thing.
Yeah.
What are you noting there, Khadijah?
Yeah.
Did it stand out for you?
Yeah, I'm seeing Coursera. This is one that I've heard nothing but good things from. Coursera has, general offerings like writing skills, project management, and communications. I see that a few of you have already posted about that one. One that I'm not seeing here is Alison.com, ALISON.com. They have courses in community development and fundraising and some other topics related to nonprofit work. So you definitely want to check those out as well. But these are some really great suggestions so far.
Yeah, and here's some other ones too. Edupath.com, aceproject.com. So we'll keep those coming in, and feel free to continue sharing resources that you've used that you think are helpful or that might help your colleagues. And we'll go ahead and move on. We're going to look at a few more sources of information and learning, but please don't stop sharing the ones that are working for you. So even with all the online resources that are available today, brick-and-mortar public libraries are still really valuable learning sites. And the great thing is all you need is a library card. Many local libraries have access to online databases and grant writing resources. So some of the things that I mentioned earlier, Grantsmanship Center and the Foundation Center that have a fee, many libraries have a membership or have a subscription, so you can access it for free through your public library, or sometimes through interlibrary loan, the magic of interlibrary loan or library networks. You can tap into it through a connection that your local library has. And some libraries have their own grant writing resources available right there. They might collect all of the grant notices from foundations and things in the region. The other good thing about libraries is they have librarians, people who know what they're doing and can help you. Librarians are usually really well versed in things like, you know, these online networks and how to access things that you might think you'd have to pay for. They know about some of the latest trends and where to get digital resources. Beyond that, many libraries offer free access to things like audiobooks, e-books, movies, music, and more. Not to mention, many of them have a community bulletin board that you could use to post notices about your own events. Say you're looking for volunteers or you want participants to come to a community meeting, or you could just look on the bulletin board to see what's going on in your area. Maybe you find a recreational opportunity or social opportunity for yourself. So please take advantage, check out your local library. Oh, see what I did there?
The U.S. Census Bureau offers free webinars on a range of topics related to using census data to better understand communities. Whether it's looking at education and income levels in various neighborhoods or understanding who's living in Indian country, these webinars offer insights and allow you to conduct your own research based on your interests.
And again, at the local level, you can get valuable information on community needs, services that are currently available, and other details about the social service landscape from local organizations like your local United Way, your local volunteer center, or your local Chamber of Commerce. Some of these organizations also offer training and networking opportunities, so find out what's available in your community.
You can also turn to the internet for free courses. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with sites like Coursera, Khan Academy, Allison, and Linda that provide free online courses. More specific to the nonprofit world, though, are sites like Nonprofit Ready. Dozens of free online courses in everything from project management to nonprofit accounting. Also, the Alliance for Nonprofit Management and Free Management Library offer free and inexpensive articles, reports, and resources on a range of topics related to nonprofit work.
Okay, so I think you're getting the idea here. There are a lot of great resources out there, no matter what topic you're interested in. But we want to bring your attention back to the Vista program for more tailored input to what you're doing. As we've mentioned, your fellow Vista members, leaders, and supervisors are a great source of information about what works in the Vista context. So don't be afraid to reach out to each other.
You can connect with other Vistas through the Vista campus. Fill out your project area and interests in your campus user profile, and of course, add a photo. Interact on the campus forums or use the map to find Vistas and alumni in your area. Vista alumni are often very happy to help current Vistas get started. Connect with the Vista program and, of course, other Vistas through social media, like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Share your photos of service and tag @AmeriCorps Vista.
Right, and you can connect with me on Twitter, if you like. I'm at AndyKing_DC. Another great resource that we really encourage Vistas to take advantage of and get connected with is LinkedIn. So I encourage you to update your LinkedIn profile with your Vista position, link to AmeriCorps Vista as the company in this experience that you list. And if you want, you can create a second entry and list in that entry, then list your sponsoring organization as the company. I also ask that you connect to the Vista groups that you'll find available on LinkedIn. So whether you've been using LinkedIn or not, now's the time to create or update your profile. So here are the steps. I'll just kind of walk you through it. When you're in there, search for AmeriCorps Vista and go to our company page and click follow. That way you'll be getting our curated job search advice and announcements that we put on LinkedIn. And if you haven't created one, or if you have, go ahead and update your LinkedIn profile. So you post your service here under Experience, Select AmeriCorps Vista as the company, as I said, and that way the AmeriCorps Vista logo will automatically populate the image field. And make sure you include the words AmeriCorps Vista in your job title. So that way, no matter how you're being searched or people are looking at your experience, they'll get that you are with the AmeriCorps Vista program.
All right. So following up with that, you want to represent as a Vista, right? So you want to make sure you're identifying yourself as a Vista. And you can do this by putting the Vista logo in your email signature, on your business cards, and you'll see a couple examples of that on the slide. And you also want to make sure that on your organization's website it's there too. And you'll find this on your social media platforms, brochures, and other communications as well. You also want to make sure you're wearing that Vista polo with pride. The link in the chat will show you where you can get the Vista logos, the official Vista logos. There's also business card templates that are available to you and a free poster that you can use to decorate your office or just represent Vista in the field. If you want to order more Vista gear, the National Service Gear Store is listed there as well.
Now, during your pre-service orientation, you develop what we call the minute message. It's a short speech about your organization, your role as a Vista, what it is that you're doing or what it is you're trying to accomplish. So make sure to rehearse your minute message often so that it comes easily to you and you can quickly explain what it is that you're doing. There are plenty of resources on the Vista campus that can teach you about creating and enhancing your minute message. All right, so we mentioned a number of resources and features that are available on the Vista campus, things that can help you stay connected and informed. Things like the, well, all the resources, I'm not even going to go into the list, all the resources that we've looked at. Now we're going to hear from an expert on the Vista campus, Scott Weinrobe. And Scott's going to show us how you can access some of these features that we mentioned during the presentation. So, Scott?
Well, thank you, Andy. Thanks very much, and it's such a great tour that you guys have given of just such a wide variety of resources for Vista to use and service. So I'm just going to, as you said, follow up on a few specific features of the campus around reporting and mostly around using the campus to connect with fellow Vistas and supervisors, Vista leaders, and alumni. One thing I want to mention, we've designed the campus so that it's very accessible and you can get access to all of the good campus resources without having to log into the site, but most of the features I'm going to show in this brief tour, you'll want to be sure to be logged into the campus. That'll unlock a lot of these extra features that I'm going to show. So as I mentioned, we designed the campus with the hope that it'll be easy for folks to navigate. Two sections that you'll probably have seen already and will contain a lot of resources that you'll want to explore. The Life Vista section, which really covers from your pre-service coursework all the way through planning for life after Vista and resources for when you become a Vista alumnus. And then the work, which covers all the different areas that Andy and Khadijah have talked about, from volunteer management, resource development, communication marketing, and so on. And of course, you know, as Andy and Khadijah mentioned, the campus has a lot of resources, and there are many other great resources out there on the internet as well. One of the features that Andy mentioned that I just wanted to navigate to so you know exactly how to access it is the AmeriCorps Vista, the impact reporting tool. What's labeled here as an impact app, but as Andy mentioned, it's not an app in the sense of something that you have to install on your phone from an app store. It's really just a mobile-friendly website. And as you noticed, I went there from the link under Life as a Vista Impact App. Once I get there, if I click this link here to connect to the Impact App, it'll take me to the actual Impact website. And from there, I'll be able to log in, but you don't have to create a new username and password to use the Impact tool. You can just log in with the same username and password that you use for the campus. I also want to talk a little bit about a feature on the campus that we call the learning plan. So you'll have already seen it a little bit from when you started service. If you click on the little drop-down menu under your name in the upper right part of the screen and click on Learning Plan, it'll take you right there. You'll certainly be familiar with the Starting Vista page, which had all of your required pre-service coursework. There's also some learning that we automatically suggest to new Vistas who create an account on the campus that we think will be useful for everyone who's serving as a Vista. And then the last column is what I want to talk a little bit more about today. It's the favorite content, and this is a way both to bookmark resources that you find on the campus that you find useful and want to have easy access to come back to later. And also, it's where resources appear that are suggested by your learning connection. So I'll talk a little bit about the learning connection feature in a moment, but let me first show you how you can bookmark resources if they appear in favorite content on your learning plan. So I'm going to use the search tool on the campus, which is pretty powerful and pretty robust. Let's say that I've heard that there was a really good recorded webinar on crafting your resume to reflect your Vista service. So I typed in resume. Even without the appropriate French accents, it's going to return the results. So I can filter it down in a lot of different ways. I know that I'm looking for a recorded webinar, so I'm going to go ahead and filter down by format. And there are even a few webinars, recorded webinars on resume writing. This is the one that a colleague told me about, translating Vista service to your resume and career. So I go ahead and click on it. I can watch that video, or if I run out of time and want to come back to it later, all I have to do is come down here and click Add this to my learning plan. And the next time I go back to the learning plan, that's going to appear here right under favorite content. I mentioned that learning connections can also suggest resources that appear on your learning plan. Let me show you how you make learning connections on the campus. You can get there in a couple of ways, but the easiest way is just to roll over the Connect and Learn menu area and then click on Learning Connections. So there's different ways that you can find learning connections. You can filter down by different focus areas, or if you know a person who you want to connect with, you can just type in their name. In this case, I'm looking for my supervisor, who happens to be named Celia's supervisor, and all I have to do is filter down to her and then click, and then I can add her as a learning connection. And there seems to be a little bit of a bug right now that I'll have to look into, but normally there would just be a little plus icon here, and I would click that and add her as a learning connection. Another way to connect is through the Vista map. So you'll also find that under the Connect and Learn area of the campus. You go ahead and click on Vista map. You can zoom in to different areas. And let's say that I'm serving in Portland. I can just zoom in there, and as I get closer, I can find little pins. I click on a pin, and then I find someone in my area. All I have to do, again, is click the little plus icon, and that will send a connection request to that person. And then once they accept we're connected, at that point the person can suggest resources to me, and they'll appear under favorite content on the learning plan. So the last tool that I wanted to show are the Vista forums, another area that you'll find in the Connect and Learn section. Just click on forums, and we have a couple of features here. We have a new search feature that lets you search for topics, within all of the forum posts. And then there's also the forums themselves. They're divided among Vista, Supervisor, and Leader forums. I'm looking for the Vista forum, so I'm going to go ahead and click that. The Vista Cafe is probably our most popular forum, so I'm going to click in there. If I want to add my own new post, I can just click Add New Forum Topic, or I can go and respond, add a comment to any existing forum post as well. And as long as you're logged in, there'll be a little field here to respond to post, and then you type in save, and it adds a comment to that thread. So thank you all. With that, let me go ahead and turn things back to Andy and Khadijah.
Well, thanks so much, Scott. We really appreciate that tour of the Vista campus. I think it's really helpful to see, where the various resources are housed and really to learn how to use these interactive tools. So I hope that that was helpful to you all as well. If you're not sure what you should do next on the campus, I have a few ideas that you might want to try. You can visit the work section to explore the resources there, or you can add a resource to your learning plan so that you can easily find it later, or you might want to connect with other Vistas using the learning connections that Scott mentioned, or just tap into some of the discussion forums and check out that Vista map a little further as well.
Yeah, and on the topic of the map, I'll just interject here. Janelle had asked a question about how do I connect with alumni in my area, and the Vista map is the way to do it. So Scott mentioned that briefly, but in case anyone missed it, the map is how you can find Vista alumni as well as Vista members.
All right, so I recognize that we've covered a lot of information today. With all of that in mind, what's one next step that you can take today after this webinar ends? Is it maybe, bookmarking the member handbook on your learning plan, or looking for an online course to explore, or maybe searching for the next community association meeting? Share your ideas in the chat.
Yeah, we've outlined a lot of resources, both within the Vista campus and beyond, so maybe one of those has stuck out to you. So if you've got an idea of what you might be interested in, you can share that now.
Oh, I see some responses coming in.
Yeah.
Let's see, enrolling in the grant writing course.
Yeah, building my learning plan and connecting with Vistas near me. Way to go, Rachel. Tracy's going to check out webinars that are being offered.
Online courses.
LinkedIn, yay. Several of you are saying LinkedIn. My colleagues will be so happy to hear that.
Ask my supervisor what trainings my agency offers.
Oh, good idea.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing I forgot to mention, your organization might have membership or subscription in like a professional association, and so there could be free training available that way. So good suggestion, Brandy.
More Vista campus courses, checking out some resources that we've shared.
All right, well, lots of great ideas coming in there.
Yeah, I think to go along with that supervisor comment, I think it's very, very, very important that you schedule a standing meeting with your supervisor if you haven't already. Maybe you'll want to meet with other team members that are at your service site, whether they're Vistas or just staff. Or maybe you want to research some professional organizations that are in your area.
Great. All right, well, in addition to all the great ideas that you've just shared, here are some other immediate next steps that you can take. Some of these you could even do it today. First, use this webinar and the Vista campus to enhance and identify some professional development goals, and then share those with your supervisor. And as Khadijah said, if you don't have a regular meeting set up, this might be a good time to do that.
Yeah. Also, you might want to identify one resource, like an on-demand webinar, or maybe a self-paced course, or even a helpful video to add to your learning plan on the Vista campus.
Mm-hmm. You could research a professional organization in your current field or in a field that interests you, and investigate what a typical career path in that area would look like. And you could also check out online trainings, resources, webinars, or other learning opportunities in that field.
And finally, you'll want to identify at least one free learning resource that may help guide you in your service. The handout for this session includes links to the examples that we mentioned previously. I know that we've given you a lot to think about, and I'm sure you have some questions, but before we get to the question and answer portion of today's webinar, we want you to give us feedback on this presentation. At this time, you should be able to see an evaluation poll on the right side of your screen. Please take a few moments to answer the questions in the poll. We really try hard to improve our webinars and make sure that you're getting the best out of them, so all of your input really helps us. And while you're completing this evaluation, we'll begin our Q&A portion of the webinar.
Great, and I'll mention there are 10 questions in that poll. You'll need to use the little slider all the way on the right to get to all 10 questions. Okay, as Khadija said, it's time for us to get to your questions. As you know, you can use the Q&A panel in WebEx. If you don't see it because the poll just opened, it should appear just above the poll. You can reopen that at any time. Ask your question. Be sure to click Submit so that it'll come over to us and we'll be able to see it. And now I'm going to ask our operator, Jennifer, to come back on the line and give us instructions for those of you who want to call in by phone. Jennifer?
Thank you. Again, to ask a question over the phone, please press *1 on your touch-tone phone, unmute your phone, record your name clearly after the prompt, and I will introduce you for your question. Again, that's *1 to ask a question. If you need to withdraw your question, you may press *2. One moment, please, for incoming questions.
All right, thanks. Well, while we're waiting for questions to come in there, I want to address a question that came in earlier. Someone had asked about using the logo, the AmeriCorps Vista logo, on things like business cards and email signatures, and it's absolutely fine to do that. There's a link in the handout. I also pasted it in the chat a little bit ago. On the nationalservice.gov website, we've got a whole section on logos, and you'll see there we've got logos for all of our programs, so you have to look carefully. There are a couple for AmeriCorps Vista. Also posted right there are the guidelines for how to use it. So, it's common sense kind of stuff. So you'll want to put our logo in, kind of a relation to your sponsoring organization's logo. They should be, similar size or weight or that kind of thing. Don't modify our logo, don't cut it in half, don't change the colors, don't put it upside down, that kind of stuff. Pretty common sense. The question has sometimes come, though, someone says, hey, I went to my local print shop to get these business cards printed, and they said they needed proof that I'm a Vista and that I'm allowed to use this logo. So what you can do is you can go to your account in My AmeriCorps, and on the left, you'll see an option called My Service Letters. You can go there, and there's one called Currently Serving Verification of Service. Print out that letter, take it with you when you go to the local print shop, and and just tell them, say, yes, I'm an AmeriCorps Vista member. Here's the letter that proves that I am, and I'm allowed to print this. It's only come up a couple of times. I think most places are just fine with printing business cards, but in case it comes up, that's a way to address it. Yep.
At this time, there are currently no questions over the phone. Again, if you would like to ask a question, please press *1, unmute your phone, record your name, and I will introduce you.
All right, great. Thank you for that, Jennifer. And for those of you who are listening online, of course, you can ask your question through the Q&A panel. It appears just above the evaluation poll. Click the little caret, the little triangle next to the letters Q&A. It'll reopen your question, and if you would, please submit it to all panelists so that we'll all be able to see it.
Let's see, we have a question here. I'm spending 2 to 3 nights per week in the city my site is located in. What are the best resources for housing in that situation? Any hotel recommendations, government rates? I found $60 per night and I'd like to do better.
This is a question I hadn't seen before. So I don't know that you would actually qualify for federal government rates since you're not technically a federal employee, and we wouldn't be able to negotiate those nights for you. You know, probably some of the best things are using the last-minute hotel booking sites, you know, Hotel Tonight, and there are a few others that, you know, where a hotel has unsold rooms and they'd rather get something rather than nothing. So that's the thing I found. Khadija, I don't know if you have any other ideas around that?
Yeah, I would say something similar, Andy, and I also think that this might be a really great chance for you to check out that Vista map. Really look into folks that are serving in your area and find out what they're doing for housing. I also think group housing is a very good alternative to living alone. I'm not quite sure what your living situation is, but 2 to 3 nights per week out of 5 may be a little taxing to commute. So if you're thinking of relocating, roommates might be a good option there, in addition to, you know, sourcing some of those local Vistas or Vista alum.
Yeah, or checking, you know, some of the classified ads or online ads around, you know, housing available. There could be, you know, maybe a family or an older couple or somebody has an extra room in their house. And if you're only going to be there a few nights a week, it could be really cheap. It wouldn't be much intrusion for them, and it could be a really economical way. So there's always an answer. There's always a way out there. So and Vistas are typically pretty resourceful at finding things out. But Khadija, I love your suggestion of finding out what other Vistas are doing, seeing who else is in the area.
Let's see. What do you do when the site supervisor does not like any ideas you give her for fundraising, and she wants to do things that aren't on your VAD? And even when you tell her this, she tries to find a way around it.
So this is one of those situations that we talked about that, you know, sometimes happens, and a lot of times it's not for, you know, any ill intent or things like that, but maybe just a lack of understanding, particularly with larger Vista projects that have multiple sites. Not every individual site supervisor is as aware as we'd like them to be about all the ins and outs of the Vista program. So it's possible that you could encounter something like this, and if, in this case, it sounds like you've gone to her a couple of times to say, hey, I really need to work on the things that are in my VAD, and what you're assigning me now isn't really there. If she's not receptive to that, a few places to check. If you have a Vista leader on your project, obviously go to the leader. You didn't mention one, so I'll assume you don't have one. If this is what we call an intermediary Vista project with many sites that are under one big umbrella, you may also want to reach out to the person at that umbrella organization who is what we call a Vista project director, or sometimes a Vista project manager, or the overall supervisor for the whole Vista project, your site and all the other sites. You can get in touch with that individual. Then you can raise a question there and say, hey, got some questions. I'm looking at my VAD and it's telling me to do X, Y, and Z, but I'm hearing from my supervisor that she wants me to do 1, 2, and 3. They don't seem to match. Can you help us sort this out? You know, you'll want to be diplomatic in how you phrase the question, obviously respectful, so that way you can go into the conversation, you know, in a really positive space. And, you know, maybe it's the supervisor just wasn't aware, or maybe the supervisor was operating under a different set of expectations or understanding. So, so having a conversation would be the best way to clear that up. And if neither of those approaches work, then you would go to your CNCS state office. Typically, it's the state where you are serving, but if you're on a big national project, that project's going to be assigned to one state, and you will have to maybe do a little bit of research to figure out who that state office is. But you may already know it. They may have contacted you before you got started. The state office would have been the one that would have approved your Vista service. So your state office is your next point of contact for a question like that.
I think there's a follow-up to that response, and it's that if things continue, meaning, I guess, poor communication with your supervisor, if that continues, am I able to transfer it to a different site?
All right, so the option to transfer is really under pretty limited circumstances. So it would have to be certainly in a case where a project is going to end and you haven't finished your Vista term of service, you're certainly eligible for a transfer. If there's a mutual determination that, that through no fault of anybody's, that it's just really not the right fit, that the project now needs a set of skills that are different from the skills that you're bringing, or the expectations have shifted, so what they need from a Vista is not what you're interested in providing. If there's been that kind of a change, then you may be eligible for a transfer, but it's not an easy thing, because what has to happen is there has to be another Vista project that right now has an empty slot available that they don't have anybody else for, and they're willing to give that slot to somebody who's only going to be with them now for less than a year. It sometimes happens, but a lot of things have to line up in order for a transfer to come through. So I wouldn't really, hang too many expectations on a transfer. I'd really put your effort into trying to clarify this difference in expectations around what you see in your VAD and what your supervisor is asking you to do. And we see that happen from time to time, and usually it's able to be cleared up and worked out.
I'm seeing another question here. What types of discounts and provisions are available for Vistas?
Well, the Vista program, we don't really charge you for anything, so we don't offer discounts. But I think what you're asking for is, hey, can I get a discount on my cell phone plan or my auto insurance or my Netflix or my Starbucks account? Unfortunately, we don't really have any national partnership relationships with companies around that kind of thing. It'd be really great if we did, but there are just a lot of, I would say, parameters within which the federal government has to operate. So, so we're not going out negotiating with companies to say, hey, you need to give us a better deal. That said, there are lots and lots of organizations and companies out there that do provide on their own or through individual requests. They offer discounts to AmeriCorps members and Vista members. One that I hear a lot is the YMCA or the YWCA. So if you're looking for a health club membership or maybe even child care that's available through a local Y, you might go and explore with one of their membership folks and let them know that you're an AmeriCorps Vista member. You're going to want to bring with you that verification of service letter that explains that you're part of the program. And see what they can do for you. I've heard, and there are lots of stories on the Vista campus in the forums. There's a forum that's called something like the Dollar Store budgets, and I forget exactly what it's called. I should know it by heart. Anyway, the Dollar Store. It's all about saving money. There are tons of examples and ideas in there about how to do this. Some people have gotten discounts on their rent from their landlords. Some people have, through a local insurance agent, have gotten their insurance rates lowered. So it's kind of an individual thing. It would take some initiative on your part, but there certainly are lots of success stories related to that.
This is a little bit of a stretch, not quite a discount, but at the end of your service, you do receive an education award, which is equal to the amount of the Pell Grant. And if you are just going to college for the first time or even continuing your education, there are a list of colleges and universities that match the education award. And so if you want to consider that a discount on your education, then there's one for you.
Yeah, great idea. I didn't think of that one, Khadijah. Jennifer, do we have any callers on the phone who have questions?
No, we currently do not have any questions over the phone.
Okay, thank you.
I'm seeing a few questions in the chat box. There are things that are scrolling pretty quickly, so if you wouldn't mind putting your questions in the Q&A, but because I can see it, I will address the question, is there a direct link to the forums?
So that's, I think, the forum on the dollar store. I'll pull that up and put that in the chat.
Okay, while Andy does that, I'll go ahead and read another question, and it is, does anyone know how competitive it is to apply to the Vista online course?
Yeah, so we always have more applicants than we do, than we have slots, and it's done by a lottery. So most of you or all of you are at the start of your Vista service, so good news there is if you don't get in this time around, then you'll have priority next time around, because we know that if you didn't make it into the lottery this time, that we don't want you to miss out entirely before your service ends. So, most people get in. You may get on a wait list. I would say if you're on a wait list, be ready to start the course, because we do typically have a lot of last-minute withdrawals, and so people who get waitlisted often do make it into the course within the first week or so. So that's it there. AGI posted the link to the forum. It's called Recipe 101, Housing at the Dollar Store. It's all about tips for saving money, living on a budget. There's some great stuff in there.
Yeah, and because I mentioned the colleges and universities that will match the Ed Award, I'm going to go ahead and add that link to the chat for you all to check out. Let's see here.
All right, and we are coming up right at the end of our time together. And it looks like we've gotten to pretty much everybody's questions. So I want to do some thanks. Thanks everyone for your questions and for all your participation today. Before we go, though, I want to share some information on our next webinar. Some of you mentioned you're interested in it. I also want to thank our production team of Scott Weinrobe and Andy Clark, and my fellow presenter, Khadijah Carr. The next webinar for Vistas is on the screen now. It's called Ace Your Next Job Interview. Well, hopefully none of you will be interviewing for a job anytime soon, but you may be interested in this as a way to think ahead. It's coming up on May 11th, same time, 2 p.m. Eastern. Of course, that will be recorded and available on demand if you're not able to attend at this time. I also encourage you to keep checking the Webinars for Vista page on the Vista campus to see what other webinars are coming up, and watch your inbox for announcements of other learning opportunities. Thank you all again for being with us. We hope to see you all again soon.